Good day and welcome to JCC Sunday School's in session, where Sunday school matters to God. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Our lesson today is titled Learn from Good Example, and it's coming from Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 and 2 and 4 through 13. Now, our lesson wants us to help us to live like Christ, and so Unit 1 wants to show us how our thinking, to think biblically. And our lesson today is going to deal with learning from good examples. We don't want to learn bad habits. So God gives us good examples to follow and learn from. So let's get into the lesson and see what it has to offer us today. I'm going to kind of keep the same way we did the book of Revelations. I'm going to kind of go and slow it down, just explain a little bit more of the verses and still use the questions as well. I pray that this here is a blessing for you. If you're liking this format, please leave me a comment in the comment section and we'll see about trying to do it more often. If you like the other way, let me know that as well, and we can kind of go back to that as well. So please give me some feedback to let me know where to go and how we want to go forward from this point forward. Verses 1 and 2 says, Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Now, this here first verse, verse 1 is a foundational verse. It is the biblical truth that we use about the definition of faith. But we need to understand that faith isn't a blind optimism. It's a profound certainty. It is the conviction that what God has promised is real, even if we can't see it. So this is what faith is trying to get in and show us, that even though we tangibly can't see it in the natural, it still can come to fruition or still has a principle in the spiritual. So let's go into question one. Question one says, what does the word substance in Hebrews 11 and 1 mean? So that word substance comes from the Greek word hypostasis. It means a firm foundation or confident assurance. It's not a mere wish, but a reality or a certainty that gives concrete existence to the things hoped for. So faith provides a solid foundation that our hope can stand upon. Question two says, how is the biblical idea of hope different from the world? The world's hope is often a wish or a desire. We wish for something or we desire to have something, but without necessarily any guarantee added to it. It's often uncertain, but we hope that things will come to fruition on our behalf. It depends on external circumstances or maybe even luck, if you can look at it from that perspective. But the biblical idea of hope is a confident expectation or something that surely will come to pass. That what God has said, it will come to pass. It will happen. See, that biblical idea of hope is grounded in God's character, his faithfulness, and his word. It is not, I hope God does it, but rather, I'm certain God will do what he has promised he will do. Even if the timing or the methods are not able to comprehend or be seen, we still stand on that blessed hope. We still stand, if God said he will do it, we stand that it will come to fruition. So as we summarize these two verses and two questions, we can see our daily lives are built on this substance. We live in a life, in a world now where things are uncertain. Our finances, our jobs, various things about life can be uncertain, but we live in faith that God has promised to be there, to never leave us nor forsake us, to be our provider, to be our protector. And when we live in it from that perspective, that kind of faith allows us to live with assurance. We can live with the assurance that no matter what, we can stand on the promises of God through faith. It gives us stability. It gives us the ability to be able to still persevere in this day and time. Question three says, what does it mean to obtain a good report? Now, to obtain a good report means that the elders, through their faith, receive a positive testimony or condemnation from God. That their lives served as a witness or proof of God's faithfulness and the reality of that faith itself. So we can see that God approved of their lives by their faith. Their stories were preserved as a result, so all of us now can glean from. We can learn now from that good example. Verse 4 says, by faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gift, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. Let's break down some phrases. We look at the phrase more excellent sacrifice. It is showing us a quality. That more excellent sacrifice was a quality and as a result of Abel's heart. He had an attitude, give God what God desired. So Abel offered the firstborn fat portions, shows us his obedience to give God what God desires. Cain offered fruit of the ground, and that wasn't what God had required. At the time of sin, because of Adam and Eve's sin, God killed an animal to clothe them, to clothe their shame. And so it took blood. It took something that sacrificed with blood to bring that to fruition. So Abel's heart of faith and obedience obtained a witness that was his righteousness. God accepted his sacrifice because it demonstrated his righteousness, which was foreshadowing that of faith. That he was trusting God because I'm giving you what you have asked for. Now I intend to receive the blessings that come from it. So God testifying of his gift, it shows again his approval. It showed that supernaturally he consumed it with fire, showing that he accepted what he had offered and not what Cain had offered. So what does question 4 show us when we look at that from that perspective? We can begin to see, as question 4 says, what does he being dead yet speaketh mean? It's showing us that Abel's act of faith, though he is dead, still continues to speak even out loud from the grave. That his story teaches us a powerful lesson about the nature of true worship and the necessity of faith and the recognition of his righteousness by God. His life served as an example and testimony for us to follow. See, Abel teaches us that true worship flows from the heart of faith and obedience. That God looks at the heart behind the offering so much more than we just putting it on the table. See, our sacrifice today might be our time, our talent, our resources, or even our lives. As we offer this, and we should offer them by faith, trusting God's way and giving our very best with that right attitude, that right heart, that right mindset that we're going to serve the Lord in the spirit of excellence and give him our very best no matter what. See, Abel's story challenges us that our lives, even after we're gone, should still speak for us. There's an old song. Does the life we live speak for us? Are our actions driven by faith that leave a lasting legacy? Praise be to God. Verses 5 and 6 read, by faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had his testimony that he pleased God. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he's a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Let's look at the word translated. The word translated in the Greek means to transfer, to remove, or transpose. In this context, we see that it means he was taken from earthly life directly into the presence of God. He left the earth and went directly into heaven to be with God without experiencing physical death. In what ways did God bless the faith of Enoch? God blessed the faith of Enoch in very ways by translating him, meaning he took him directly to heaven, allowed him to come into the very essence and presence of God without even seeing death. Why? Because Enoch was faithful. He walked with God. And his testimony says that in the Bible, he pleased God. So the Bible shows us here, this verse shows us here, that if we don't have faith, it's impossible to please him. So faith is a foundational aspect of our relationship with God. It is required because it pleases God. See, the essence of Enoch's faith pleased God, meaning that his entire life was lived in a way that brought pleasure to God, that God was pleased with the way Enoch lived his life in submission and surrender to the will of God. Enoch stands out for his walk with God in an ungodly generation. Now remember that while Enoch was here, the generation was ungodly. But his faith was active and consistent, showing us that if we have the faith that God requires, we have that divine favor in the end. That God will also call us to be with him in the end as well. So Enoch life reminds us that faith is not about belief, but about a continuous walk with God. Do we consistently live in a way that brings pleasure to him? See, he brings an example. Enoch brings an example of hope. He brings an example of hope, of deliverance, hope that even though we live in an unclean, sinful world, that because we do what God has asked us to do, our life can be a testimony that still pleases God in these times. Question 6 says, what are the two crucial components of faith that make a relationship with God possible? The two crucial components are belief that God is, belief that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Now, let's go in and break these two down. Belief that God is means that believing in his existence, his divine nature, his power, and his character. I want us to see something that today, belief is not just believing in God, but it means a reliance on God. It is saying that I'm willing to believe in God in such a way that even though I don't see him, even though he is not around, I'm still going to rely on his character no matter what. See, genuine belief produces a desire to obey. See, the second point says that he is a reward of them that diligently seek him. Belief that God responds to and blesses those who earnestly pursue him. This is what this verse is trying to say, that God will bless those who earnestly believe in him, who are reliant upon him. That's the thing is what we're trying to say. Faith that when we sit in a seat, we're relying that that seat is going to hold us up. And God is saying that I will reward those who diligently seek me, that I want you to seek me and live a life that you rely completely on me. That's what God is wanting us to do. That's the example that God wants from us in this day and time. Now, verse 7 reads, by faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of righteousness, which is by faith. Now, again, there's some phrases that we want to kind of go in and explain. It says, warned of God of things not seen as yet. So Noah believed God's warning about a global flood. And so as he believed that, he responded in a way that was of faith. Well, how did he respond? It said he moved with fear. This is not a coward fear, but a reverence. He reverenced God in faith. How did he do it? By being obedient to what God said. He obeyed the word of God, which led to a decisive action through obedience. That he was willing to obey God and move in response to that. It says that he prepared an ark. His faith was expressed in a way allowed him to labor for many years, showing his obedience that even though he couldn't see rain, even though rain had never fallen on the earth at that time, he was willing to still trust God and rely on what God said, and he began to respond in obedience. And we know that there's a phrase that said, condemn the world, that his obedience highlighted the world's disobedience and unbelief. His life was a silent witness against their sin. So our faithfulness should do the same, that we should be able to display to the world what it means to live a life of obedience in faith versus disobedience and unbelief. Question 7 says, how did Noah demonstrate that he was a man of faith? He demonstrated he was a man of faith by believing God unseen warning. He believed God about the future flood without even seeing or understanding what it meant that rain was coming. He acted in obedience and a reverence for God to do what God said do. And then he stood in contrast to the world. He showed us that he would be different from the world, that even though his actions showed their unbelief and disobedience, he was going to act in faith and obedience as well. And this is our response to today, that we are to act in obedience and faithfulness to God in faith. So we see here again how we can look at this here and how it can bring about some insight for our lives, that Noah's faith was active. Noah exemplified that very thing that James says, faith without work is dead. So we see here Noah exemplified faith in action, faith that is working, faith that's alive and well. So God still wants us to move in faith to him as well. So we should be building things in our lives that God has showed us. What ark is God calling us to build in our lives? What are we doing? Are we turning away from sin, serving him, investing in the kingdom? What are we doing? Noah's life reminds that the true faith is always active and often stands out in contrast to the things around us, especially this world. Verse 8 through 13 reads, by faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed and went out, not knowing whether he went. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Though faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead. So many as the stars of the sky is multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. These all died in faith, not having received the promise, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and the pilgrims of the earth. Now, there's so many little different things that we can go in and highlight in these verses. If we go and just pull out little clauses, Abraham was called out. It goes in and shows us that God initiated the call, and Abraham responded to the call in obedience. He responded in faith through obedience. He didn't know where he was going, but Abraham responded to what God had asked him to do. The nature of our radical faith should be that of obedience and trust in God, even when we don't know, have a clear understanding of where we're going for God. The Abraham story introduces again that he was a pilgrim by faith. He left the familiar for the unknown. He solely trusted in God's direction for his life. So God still calls us to step out on faith as well, to step out even new ministries, difficult conversations, to do things for him, to pursue what he has for our lives. Do we obey him and respond in obedience and faith, or do we go in and try to fulfill our own path in our own way? Text says that he dwelled in tabernacles, meaning he dwelled in tents, symbolizing temporariness. See, he didn't have a permanent home. See, this world is not our home. We're just only passing through. We are just like him. We're dwelling in tabernacles, dwelling in tents, because our intent is to make our home with Jesus. So there's so many more things that we can look. He looked for a city with half foundation, meaning he looked for something that was not temporary, but permanent. He looked for a secure dwelling place. He wanted to be in that New Jerusalem that we have talked about, that we've learned about in our lesson this week. And he wanted one who was the builder and the maker is God. Abraham wanted the city that God will build. That city that is superior to anything that we can come in contact on this land. So what are we looking for? Is our hope built on nothing less than Jesus Christ, tender kindness? We should be looking for that tabernacle, that dwelling place that's built by God, that's prepared by God, so we can have our priorities straight. So, question 8 is, why did the author of Hebrews devote extra attention to the life of Abraham? It shows us that Abraham is quintessential to the example of faith. He was the father of faith. He's the father of the Jewish nation, but he's also the father of faith. His faith shows us that we should remain obedient without even knowing the destination, that we are to live again as pilgrims in this here land, that we're trying to make this journey to get to the promised land. It shows us again how he trusted God for the impossible. He was of old age, him and his wife, and God still promised him a son, and he trusted, he put all of his faith in God to go in and do what God wanted done. So we see here, even in that aspect, that when God asked him to go in and sacrifice his son, Abraham's faith in God, because he knew that the promise was through his son, Isaac. He knew that promise was through him. So he put faith that even if I do go through this here, God can miraculously bring him back to life and give him to me so he can go and fulfill this promise that he had made to me through him. And so that's what God is looking for, the example that are we walking a walk in obedience? Are we realizing that we are on a journey and we are faithfully pursuing our final resting place with God? That we trust him for the impossible, that no matter what, if God said he's going to give it to us, we can be assured that God will. So we see here that lesson spends a lot of time with Abraham. So question answer, what circumstances acted as a test of Abraham's faith? So we realize in the text today, he left his homeland for an unknown destination, that he left leaving where he knew, a place that he knew, to go to a place that God told him to go that he did not know. So we see here again that how he was willing to move in faith for God. We also see here that his temporary residence, the promised land, he lived in a tent, demonstrating that he was looking for that permanent city, looking for a land that will be there for him in the end. So he shows us how he's willing to go forth and do things for God at the very hint of God saying it. That if God said it, he's going to do it. To God be the glory. Question 10 says, how should the fact that we are strangers in the land affect the way we live? The way we are strangers in this land and how it affects the way we live, it should show us how we should be detached from the materialism of this world. Our ultimate treasure is laid up in heaven. We should lay our treasures in heaven, and that should be the very thing that we should be pursuing in faith. We should focus on eternal values. We should endure and persevere no matter what. That our lifestyle should be different than that which is around us. That we should live a life in a way that demonstrates that our faith and obedience is to God. We should be looking and persevering to try to get to that final resting place so that we can be with God for eternity. We see the lesson teaches us to learn from those who paved the way. Everyone in the Hall of Faith can teach us something to help us live a life of faith and faithfulness to God. I pray that you enjoyed this lesson. As always, please leave us a comment. Leave one or two. Hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button as well. That really does help us out. And I pray that you have a blessed time in the name of the Lord as you teach this lesson to your people at church. So until next time, come back, same time, same channel. Be blessed now.